All right, so in Ephesians 4, verses 17 through 19, it says this. With the Lord's authority, I say this, live no longer as the Gentiles do, for they are hopelessly confused. Their minds are full of darkness. They wander far from the life God gives because they have closed their minds and hardened their hearts against him. They have no sense of shame. They live for lustful pleasure and eagerly practice every kind of impurity. Okay, now you're like, who are these Gentile characters? And I hope I don't fit that. All right, because obviously we see they talk very negatively about these people and their lifestyle, and they're called the Gentiles. Now, culturally, in those days, Gentiles were people that were not Jesus followers, and they were individuals that practiced these pagan, idol-worshiping ceremonies and these religions. And Ephesus was a very religious place as far as one of their main temples to this idol Artemis was one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. So these people are religious, and yet some of the practices that they would do in worshiping their gods were crazy. Were crazy. And so when you see some of these words and it's strong language, sometimes I feel like we take words like this and we go, oh, it's talking about you. No. Like we take it and we're like, oh, that's just like these people. No. This is to a specific group of people at a specific time and place in their history. And these individuals were definitely jacked up, had a lot of issues. And we see some of the things about them. One is they were confused. Okay, so people that were considered the Gentiles, that were not a part of this church, Ephesus, is one of the things they were very confused about the point of life and the direction that they should choose with their life. The next thing is, it says their minds were far from God, and it says they were filled with darkness. One of the things I love is when you read your Bible, depending on your translation, it's either, wow, this is easy to understand, or what does that mean? And if you and one of the other translations that I have, it says that they had calloused hearts. Okay? Some of you work hard for your labor, and some of you're on a computer doing this all day. Okay? For some of you that get calluses in your fingers, it's crazy because you can it's like if you ever have see a little kid and you want to mess with them, like grab a callus and go. And they're like, and they're just like, and you're like, yeah, that's how strong I am. My skin just breaks. Okay? But you don't feel it because it's numb. It's calloused over. And really what we see and we read about these people is that was their hearts towards anything that was good. Towards God. It was just callous. They didn't even feel it. They didn't feel shame. They went after their lustful pleasures. Whatever looked good, let's try it. And they pursued it to as far as they could. In other words, if something felt good, let's go deeper. Okay? If this drug is good, let's try this, and maybe it'll make it more potent. Okay? If it's anything with sex, well, let's spice this up. How do we make this even more crazy? And so they would pursue it to the max, and what they would do. And so there wasn't any boundaries or sense of this is it. We can't go past this. And so there's 3 things there. They were confused in life, calloused heart, and then they had a lustful pursuit of pleasure. And one of the things that we just see and we know that this pursuit and what Paul is trying to tell this church is there should be a defining difference between that and who you are. And as he's talking about this, like one of the things that just blows me away. So like this week, I was reading this story about like he's like the top chef in the world. His restaurant was just named the best restaurant in the world, and everyone was in shock because he killed himself. I think it was this last week. And I'm reading this story, and I'm just like, and I'm reading, and it wasn't like he had a history of depression or anything. It was like, and all his colleagues are like, man, this guy was driven. He had this project going on. He didn't like back away from us. He was still engaged in everything. But in the story, they were talking about the highlights of the pressure these chefs have at this highest level to maintain and all this. And I was thinking like, you're at the top of your profession, like, not like in your town, in your city, in your state, in your country, in the world. Like you're the top at what you do in the world. And it's not enough. And I think sometimes, and it's funny, I was watching and this was a couple of years ago, I was watching Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech because I don't know about you, but I grew up and I was like, I want to be like Mike. Now, obviously, as you can tell, that didn't work out, okay? But I grew up just like so many other kids in my era going, oh, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan. And I remember watching his Hall of Fame speech, and I'm just like, speak wisdom. And he was just like bitter. And it was the weirdest thing. And the thing I came away with is man, you can arrive and be the very best and the top at whatever you do. You can push the boundaries to the max, and the whole world can go, wow, you've arrived, you've got it. And you can be empty. You can be confused. You can feel these pressures that you were never meant to carry with you. And we see that, and it's sad. And so Paul says, you should be different. Like we should look different, church. And so in Ephesians 4, verse 20, he keeps going, and he says this, but that isn't what you learned about Christ. Since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from him, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Okay, so first off, Paul says, and this cracks me up, because he says, you didn't learn Christ that way. He goes, how do I know? Because I was your pastor. Okay, so he's like, I taught you not to do that. Okay, and so he's telling them, I taught you the truth. And then he says, get rid of that old self, because listen, this isn't like a culture like some of us, we like grew up and we were like force-fed the Bible. It was like a sucker that our parents would put in our mouth every morning. And it's like, Bible. You go to church, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, Christian camps. You're going to go to Christian school. You're going to listen to Christian music. You're going to watch Christian movies, which was brutal when I was growing up. Christian movies were like, can they act? It's like now they're starting to learn how to act in Christian movies. It's okay. But I remember it was like force-fed. When you're looking at these churches, these people didn't grow up going, I'm a Christian, I went to VBS and all this. Like, no. Like, these are people that are brand new to this. They're from a totally different tradition, totally different set of values. And so it's a continual conflict for them because they're living and they're surrounding themselves with their friends that they used to go, hey, man, we used to get crazy and da-da-da-da all the time. So they're not like this like big Christian-y culture. And so Paul's like, listen, you know that that's not you, that's not what you've been taught. You need to throw that old self, those old clothes out. How many of you who have gotten ready, okay, so there's like this an event. Like, let's say it's an event, and if you're married, you get what I'm talking about. If you're not, hang with me, because it'll happen, okay? And you're supposed to dress up. And you come out, and this happened to me recently. You come out, and you yell, like upstairs, honey, I'm ready to go. And she comes downstairs, and she goes, you're not wearing that. Like, I look pretty good. I'm not wearing that? No, you're not wearing that. Go change. Paul is like, you're not wearing that. Like, that's not you. That's the old stuff. Like for some of us, it's like you need to go and look into your closet. Have you ever looked into your closet and you look at some of the stuff that you still have in there? Like, if you've moved recently, you know you have. And you go in there and you're like, man, I don't think I can fit in this anymore. Or it's like, man, I've lost some weight. Look at these jeans. Yeah, honey. Yeah, okay? Or it's just like, wow, styles have changed. Every time I go to put on a suit for an event, which is rare, I go, wow, styles have changed, okay? Because it just feels wrong, all right? And so you look at that, or maybe there's a stain on something. And you look at it and you go, man, I need to throw this out. This doesn't represent me anymore. For me, it's really hard with shoes and socks. That's like, goodbye. It's like hard to get rid of them. And I think that's so true when it comes to our old self and our old nature. Some of us need to examine like who we were and go, man, have I really like cleaned this out? And for some of us, we have like this vice, like for me, it's like my shoes. And it's like a part of us, and it's like, and you need someone else to help you. Like, I don't know how many shoes I have, and then Lindsay will go, you have way too many shoes. I gotta throw some out. And for some of us, that's our lives. And I don't know why we hold on to stuff. I mean, and we can see this battle that this church had. These individuals would battle, like going back and forth, and they would hold on to some of these things that would drag them down. I don't know why we do that. It's so weird. Like, can you imagine, like, if at the Super Bowl tomorrow, Cam Newton, who's the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, who's just, like, ridiculous, imagine if he ran out in his college jersey. Everyone would go, you're not at Auburn anymore. Like, you're in the NFL. You should be wearing the right stuff. And they're like, that's not you anymore. He's changed. Things have changed. He's on a different team now. For some of us, we've changed. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And we need to do away with some of those things. It would be like if someone went over to your house and you and your wife, like let's say Lindsay and I came over to your house and you invited us over and we come and you're taking me through the house and you're like, now, Steve, this is a picture of me and my ex together, and your spouse is like, yeah, this is a picture of me and my ex. Like, who has pictures of them and their exes in their house? Nobody. Because that's like history, right? You don't even talk about your exes. That's like an immediate fight. For those of you who are thinking about getting married, don't talk about your exes. Okay? You don't like keep bringing that up. No, that's old news. That's who you were. That's not who you are. We need to do that. They needed to do that. And he keeps going in Ephesians 4, 23 and 24. It says, instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. Let the Spirit renew your mind. In Romans 12, it talks about this too, about not being conformed to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I'll just tell you this right now. Your mind is so powerful. But anything that is very powerful is also very dangerous. And you look at it, and in Proverbs 23:7, it's talking about this specific group of people, and it says how they thought with their mind, and so they were. And in other words, they were becoming what they were thinking about. And you and I, if we are not careful, we become the very thing that's consuming our minds. And so the thing we first have to do, if we're going to renew it, we got to identify what's going on in here. Some of you are like, oh no. We got to identify what's going on up there. Like when you think about it, like what are you allowing to speak into your life? Like what are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Like talk shows. Some of you are like, talk shows, okay? Like podcasts. Some of you are huge into podcasts. Like, who are those people? Like pastors. If you go to this church, you're so blessed by the no, I'm kidding. But like, there's pastors speaking into your life. Mentors. Maybe it's somebody that's a mentor that speaks into your life and you allow them to. Maybe it's friends. And you got to be careful because some friends you're like, speak, and some you're like, no, thank you. Okay, and then you like look at the other things like family. And family's the same thing. They're like, I'm family. You need to listen to me. And you're like, you're crazy. Okay? But like we have all these people, coworkers, people in our lives that we allow to speak into it or talk directly to us. And the question is not, do we have conversation or not? Because that's fine. But are we allowing that to get into our mind? And then are we dwelling and thinking about it? And if we are, is it good? Like the music that we listen to. That's something like that I struggle with because obviously, look at me. I love something with a good beat, and there's times that I'll be listening and I have no idea what they're saying. I'll just be honest, no idea. But I'm rocking out, and then Lindsay will just look at me. Do you have any idea what you're singing? No. You're singing this. Oh, Pastor Steve. And it's like it just happens, okay? But we need to think about those things. Not so that you become like this crazy anti-person. Listen, that's not what we're talking about. Okay? But we need to identify what is going on here because it comes out. The other thing is, what am I looking at, right? Because what I look at, I will start to dwell on, all right? So there's different things that you look at, right? Like the TV. Some of you look at TV. Maybe you don't have a TV and you're a monk. That's awesome, okay? Good for you. You don't have a TV. Maybe it's movies. The internet. I mean, the internet's crazy. I remember back in the day and the internet was like that weird noise, and it would be like connecting, and And now it's just like crazy. There's Wi-Fi everywhere. Like think about phones, what kids are viewing on their phones. I speak at junior high and high school camps, and I cannot believe how much time these leaders ask me to talk about phones. And I go back to when I was in high school, and it's like, I remember when they came out, and it was like, and I had a holster, and it was big, and I just walk around like, yeah, I have a cell phone. And it's like you only get service in like that spot. I have a cell phone. And it was like, cool. I can't even imagine if you would have told that version, that age of Steve, like, hey, at some point you're going to be touch screening it. You're going to be viewing things. It's going to be insane. Like, internet's going to, like, I would have been like, but that's like the culture. And you got to be careful what you allow in there, in your mind. Social media, you got to be careful when you look at that, because when you look at that, all of a sudden you're dwelling on somebody else. You're thinking about somebody else. You're letting somebody else consume your mind. Somebody who's just like posting stuff. They're not thinking like, oh, I wonder if Steve's going to see this. Like, no. And we're allowing that to like wreck us. Why? We got to renew our minds. And how do you renew your mind? You renew it by the Spirit. You renew it through God's word. And I'll just say this. This happened to me last night. Last night, I'm having these thoughts. And it's like, okay, so we're doing this on Saturday night, not Sunday. So I'm like, man, I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow, and da-da-da-da-da, and God, why are da-da-da-da. And it's almost like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll throw like this little pity party for myself. And like no one's there, and I'm just like, ugh. And it was like, what am I doing? And so I just opened this up. Because I wasn't going to go downstairs and say, honey, will you just like encourage me? Just speak nicely to me. No, we've got 2 kids. She's going to like hit me, okay? No. So I open this up, and I read it, and it totally just like gives me perspective on just how far off I am, and it reminds me of whose I am and the incredible, good, and wonderful God that I serve. And in that moment, I came back to life and back to reality, and I put on the right clothes. Because guess what? There's these new clothes that we all should be wearing. And what do these clothes represent? Well, they represent forgiven. They represent overcomer. They represent peace, faith, hope, love. Like that's the clothing we should all be wearing. People should look at that and be inspired. And Paul keeps going here as he shuts this down in verses 25 through 32. He says, so stop telling lies. He's talking to these Ephesians now. He's like, okay, so stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. And don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. You've got like 2 seconds to deal with anything you're angry about. No, I'm kidding. For anger gives a foothold to the devil. If you are a thief, quit stealing. Instead, use your hands for good work, and then give generously to others in need. Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. And do not bring sorrow to God's Holy Spirit by the way you live. Remember, He has identified you as His own, guaranteeing that you will be saved on the day of redemption. Get rid of all the bitterness, the rage, the anger, the harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. So what are they supposed to look like in regards to this like cultural conflict they're in, where their culture that they're in just pursues everything to the max, like pleasure, I want more, how do I get it? There's no boundaries, let's keep pushing them, whatever says goes. Like this conflict that they had, he says, first of all, don't be a liar. Now listen, I don't care if you're like, I'm a Jesus follower or I'm not. Don't be a liar. Like nobody likes a liar. Like, tell the truth, especially if you're like, oh yeah, I'm a Jesus follower. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Be known for truth. He says, like, when you talk about being angry, he says, if you're angry, have it be the right kind of anger, a righteous anger. And listen, and if you're angry at something, don't let the sun go down on that anger, okay? Now, I took this literally this week. Like, I'm in a game, and I'm the coach of these 8th grade boys. It's the championship, and I'm worked up, just like everyone in the gym is. And this ref, for whatever reason, doesn't like me. I'm just thinking he didn't because of how he was calling the game. But he's calling this game, and these are just bad calls. And so I remember this verse, don't let the sun go down on your anger. So I knew I had to tell him how mad I was right away. And so I walked out there and I told him because it's biblical. No, that's not how you do it. But I did do that, okay? And we won. But that's okay. That's a different story. But I'm saying, you should not be an angry person and go, I'm a Jesus follower. Like, that's so contradicting. Have you ever met someone and they're just miserable and they're angry, but they're like, hey, you should go to church with me. I'm not going to church with you. I don't know where you go. I ain't going there. Like, that's got to be the worst place on earth. I mean, goodness. I mean, like, and it's so bizarre, but he's like, listen, stop being, like, why are you angry? Like, we should be the happiest people on earth. And it's like, and they're angry. And he's like, stop being angry. And if you are angry with someone specifically, like quit just letting it grow. Like, deal with it. Don't let the sun go down. If it's a ref, address the ref. Now, I'll say at halftime, me and the ref talked, and we cleared the air. And I said, hey, come to Limitless. We love anybody. It's Limitless, okay? And we're good now. I hope he comes. But listen, he says, don't be angry. And then he keeps going and says, don't steal. Now, some of us are like, duh. But listen, stealing or looking to take advantage of somebody else. Because some of us are like, man, I don't struggle with stealing. Like, I don't see that and go, oh, I should take it. But you may want to steal in a different context. Taking something that doesn't belong to you and doing whatever you can to get there. That shouldn't be what we're about. How do I talk? Oh, this one's like as I'm talking, is it giving grace? Is it edifying? Like, what is it doing? What's coming out of this? That's like the worst passage. I just want to go, because it's so hard. Like, listen, when you see these lists, if you're a list person or you're just like a superstar Christian you think you are, you go, oh, I do all this. No. The point is not to compare. The point isn't to go like, okay, I'm this good or I'm not this good. No. It's like, listen, these are things that should just be continually on my mind. Like, man, is my talk edifying? Is it giving grace? Is it helping others? Like, I should just be asking those questions. You know, the other thing is like bitterness. I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're bitter, please deal with that. Like, deal with it tonight. Because it talks about bitterness, and then it talks about all these other things that come out of bitterness. Bitterness will wreck your life. Bitterness is one of the nastiest things that I've ever seen or dealt with anybody. If there is bitterness, you have got to address it, please. Because it will tear you up, and not just you, but it'll tear up your marriage, it'll tear up your kids, it'll tear up your family, your coworkers, and you will be an angry person. Like, there will be so many issues with you just because you're bitter. And sometimes bitterness will take its toll on you physically. Deal with that. And then he says, forgiveness. Be kind and forgive because you have been forgiven. And when I can't forgive, by me not being able to forgive someone, I'm really saying, hey, Christ, what you did on that cross, which was pretty crazy, that wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. Not to forgive them. And he's just like, and you're like, no. And listen, forgiveness is one of those things that is so, I talked about grace like 2 or 3 weeks ago, how a lot of times we throw that word out so often, especially, in Christian circles, and we're some of the least people that actually apply it. And I would say forgiveness is right up there with grace, because I see forgiveness also like if somebody is like, man, I don't want anything to do with God, we're like, oh, I forgive you because you just didn't know. Oh. But if it's somebody that's like, well, I'm a Christian, or hey, I follow Jesus, then it's like stone them, like kill them. It's like, what? Like of all the people that should be offering forgiveness, it's you and me. Because we've been forgiven. Like some of you have been forgiven like 15 times today. Like you're on your way here and you're cussing. You're so mad. And like something happens, or this, or that, or man, why do they have church on Saturday this week? What in the world? Da, da, da. Or this, that, and God's just like, I forgive you, I love you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And yet we know it's wrong, but we keep doing it, and he keeps forgiving, and he keeps saying, you know what, Steve, I'm still going to use you, and you keep screwing it up, but I love you, I forgive you, I'm going to keep using you, and then somebody else does something, anything to me, and I'm like, no, let's go Braveheart on them. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, do you read this? And when do you read it, do you like read it, or do you just like read it and go, cool? Because when this becomes a part of my life, like I'm not this angry person, I'm not this bitter person, I'm not this person that doesn't forgive. I'm not that person, because this transforms my life. When it says renewing your mind, this will renew your mind. This will. And listen, when we talk about forgiveness, you don't forgive someone because they deserve it. Like so many times, like, well, they don't deserve it. Or they're not really sorry. Well, who cares? Like, Christ went to the cross for every single one of us, and guess what? We weren't even alive. And you know what? He's on the cross, and he's like, I know Steve's going to do this. I know Steve's going to do that. I know he's going to say this. I know he's going to act this out. But I'm still going to die for him. I didn't deserve that. I didn't earn it. I don't have anything significant that he can just go, oh, I need Steve on my team. No. He freely gave me that. You know, as I look at that, Lindsay and I, we just celebrated 8 years of marriage this week. And thanks. Tells you how sad culture is. No, I'm kidding. It's actually huge, because I remember the girls I dated, they were like, you will never last with anyone. And I was like, thanks. Okay. But we celebrated 8 years this last week, and we're out on this date by ourselves. And that's when you clap. Like, for those of you that don't have kids, you don't know yet. But when you have kids, that's when you clap. When you are there and you're staring into each other's eyes and you're like laughing at each other and you're just like, oh, you are cute. Oh my gosh. That's why we got married. And you're having this moment of like joy. And kids are awesome. Don't get me wrong. But there is this moment that we were having. And at one point, and I'm just being transparent because that's the type of church we are, I just said, I can't believe you wanted to have kids. And then I get snapped out of it. But anyway, we were just having an awesome moment. And I started thinking about it. And I started thinking like, why doesn't anybody ever say, are you guys newlyweds? Like, we never get that anymore. I'm telling you, year one, it was like everywhere. We pull up into a Vons. Oh, you two were so cute. Did you just get married? Yeah. We're at the movies. We're getting movies together. And I don't know. I'm probably saying, oh, let's just get the Notebook again, baby. I'll watch it with you. Da-da-da-da-da. All these things. And it was like everyone knew. But now, and like Southwest flights, like I remember Southwest flights, we were the couple that was like, I don't care. And we're just like cuddling in the corner 2 seats. We don't care. You could sit there, but we're with each other. And now we're on Southwest. She's on that side. I'm on this side. And we're like, let's pretend the seat's not here. Not so we can cuddle, but so we have space. And it's like things have changed in our lives, and there's no longer just that like, oh my goodness, there you are. I can't wait to get home and see you. Bye, I love you, da-da-da, emoji, da-da-da, I'm home. Like, no, that's not us anymore. But I was reminded when we were out, like, we have got to fight to renew that. And in our lives, if we're going to go all in with this, you are going to have to fight to keep this renewed in your life, in your heart, in your mind. Because if you don't, just like this church, you'll just kind of like go, oh, there's my old shoes. I liked those. And you're back. And you're not who you were. You're not who you're designed to be. And then there's that emptiness. Then there's that conflict. All of a sudden you're angry. All of a sudden you don't know the route that you're supposed to go with your life. And I was looking at this and it's like, so we were saying, so when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, they didn't leave those clothes on Lazarus. You know what they did? They're like, you stink. Let's get him some new clothes. You've been raised from the dead. Listen, every single one of us in this room, if you say, I am a Jesus follower now, you have been raised from a different life, a life that was not going anywhere, and you have been resurrected into this incredible life through Jesus Christ, and so you get new clothes. And the reality is, I don't know about you, but if I'm living like this, not like a creep, like I just did. I don't know why I just did that, but that's weird, okay? like we'll edit that later, so you can share it online. But anyway, that was so creepy. Man, I have kids. Okay, people should see you and want what you have. And I feel like they see us and they're like, oh man, who can I talk to? There they come. No, they should want what you have. You know, it's the presidential election. It's like, it's crazy. That's all you see on the news. It's driving me crazy. Oh. But I see their slogans, and I like looking at that. And as I was looking at the slogans, I was reminded of the president we have now, President Obama, and I was reminded of the power of the slogan that he had. And honestly, I think it was one of the reasons he won. And his slogan was, change you can believe in. That was the slogan for his whole campaign, was change you can believe in. And as I was thinking about that last night in these slogans, I was thinking, man, my life should reflect change that people want to believe in. That's what my life should represent, a change that people want to believe in. Let me pray. God, I just thank you for tonight. I thank you for the renewed mind, the renewed life that we have, the new clothes that we should be representing and enjoying what we wear. And Lord, there should be a joy, there should be excitement with life. There should be a direction and peace. There should be forgiveness. This should be a church about forgiveness, about love. And so, Lord, I pray that whatever we've got right now that's like old laundry that we haven't dealt with, that we haven't gotten rid of, I pray that we would do that. Not because we'll look cooler or better or more like a Jesus follower, but Lord, because we just want to be authentic and real with you. Because God, for whatever reason, you reached down into our pathetic state and said, I love you. Let me send my one and only son to come and die for you and give you a new life, a resurrected hope. And just as we read in those verses, you will save us in that moment. At the end of times, you will redeem our lives. And so we say, thank you. Thank you. In Jesus' name.